In 90 seconds, this little armored animal would run for his life. But right now, hidden between his bony plates, a very different drama is unfolding. This is a 9-banded armadillo. His armor stops teeth and claws, but between every bony band, ticks have burrowed deep, feeding on the soft skin he can never reach. But he is not alone. Small brown birds drop down and land on his shell, slipping their beaks into the gaps between his bands. The cleaning begins almost at once. Their slender beaks reach where nothing else can, plucking the ticks from the soft skin between his plates, one after another. For the armored one, it is the only relief he ever gets, and each parasite pulled free is a small mercy. But the peace will not last. Out in the forest shadows, something has been watching. A puma, the silent hunter of these riverbanks, and a small armored animal distracted. But the little birds see the shadows move. In an instant, they burst off his shell in a flurry of alarm calls, and the armored one, feeling them leave, knows danger is here. The puma explodes from the shadows and charges, and the armored one does the one thing that can save him. He does not freeze, he does not try to fight. He turns and runs, his short legs pumping, sprinting flat out across the open riverbank toward the one place a puma will hesitate to follow, the water. He hits the water with a splash and reveals a secret almost no one knows. This armored little animal can swim. He gulps down air to help himself float and paddles hard away from the bank, out into the river. The puma skids to a halt at the water's edge, its meal escaping into a world it will not enter. And here, in the safety of the river, the armored one finds a second set of helpers, small silver fish, drawn to the parasites in his shell, gathering around him as he floats. The birds cleaned him on land. Now the fish will finish the job in the water, in a place the puma can never follow. The fish slip into the deepest gaps between his bands, plucking out the ticks the birds could never reach underwater. To them, this floating armored animal is a feast delivered right to their stretch of river, and the armored one simply drifts there, weightless and safe, letting the water wash his enemies away. But the river holds its own dangers. Deep below him, in the murky green, something enormous has felt the vibrations of the feeding fish. A giant catfish, longer than the armadillo himself, rising slowly from the riverbed. It is not here for the parasites, it is here for him. The giant catfish surges up, its huge mouth opening wide beneath him. The armored one has a fraction of a second, and he uses it. He paddles frantically for the nearest bank, kicking hard, as the enormous fish lunges up from the deep, its jaws snapping shut just behind him in an explosion of water. He heaves himself up out of the shallows onto a different bank, far from the puma, safe from the catfish, dripping and exhausted. In the space of a few minutes, this small armored animal has escaped two of the deadliest predators of the riverbank, one on land, one in the water, and somehow he has survived them both. And his loyal cleaners find him again. The small brown birds, who scattered the instant the puma appeared, come drifting down to his new bank and settle back onto his shell. Their alarm gave him the seconds he needed to run. Without their warning, he would never have reached the water in time. And now they simply carry on cleaning where they left off. Now the birds work through the last of the parasites, moving band by band across his shell, pulling out the ticks that hid in the deepest gaps. Between the fish in the river and the birds on the bank, the armored one is finally being cleaned from every angle, every crevice tended, every enemy removed. Cleaned and calm, the armored one goes back to what he does best. He drives his powerful claws into the soft earth, and digs, tearing open the ground to reach the insects and grubs hidden inside. As he works, the birds ride along, snapping up the insects he stirs from the soil. Another small partnership, another mouth fed by the armored one's labor. By the time the day begins to cool, the transformation is complete. The ticks that burrowed between his bands at dawn are gone, picked out by beaks on land and washed away by fish in the river. His shell, dull and infested this morning, is clean in every gap. For an animal who cannot reach a single crevice of his own armor, this is nothing less than survival. The armadillo is one of the strangest survivors in all of South America. He can hold his breath underwater for minutes, float across rivers, and dig himself out of sight in seconds. But for all these remarkable tricks, he still cannot clean his own armor. And so, like so many armored animals before him, he depends on partners small enough to reach where he never can. As the sun sinks low over the river, the armored one turns for home. He has been cleaned, and he has survived, escaping a puma on land and a giant catfish in the water in a single afternoon. The birds make their last passes across his shell and lift toward the trees, and the armored runner shuffles off toward his burrow through the golden evening light. Tomorrow the ticks will have crept back between his bands in the night. The armored one will wake and shuffle out to the river again. And once more his faithful cleaners will find him. The birds dropping from the trees, the fish waiting in the water, ready to tend the armored runner exactly as they always have. And so the routine begins again. Beak into the gap, a gentle tug, and another parasite is gone. Band by band, crevice by crevice, the little birds work their way across his shell, and the armored one closes his eyes, feeling the familiar relief spread across his back with every tiny pull. All along this river, and far beyond it, the same hidden deals are unfolding. The capybara and its birds, the turtle and its fish, and the armored armadillo escaping into the very water where his cleaners wait. Everywhere in the wild, the animals that survive are the ones that learn to depend on others. Back on the bank, the cleaning goes on. The birds have found a fresh cluster of ticks tucked deep beneath his largest band, and they set to work, plucking them free one after another, until the last stubborn parasite is pulled loose and swallowed, and the gap is finally completely clean. We imagine that in the wild, only the strong and the fast survive. But the armored armadillo tells a different story. He is not the strongest, nor the fiercest. What keeps him alive is his armor, his clever escapes, and above all, the small partners who clean what he cannot reach and warn him of the dangers he cannot see. So the next time you picture the armadillo, the strange little animal in his suit of armor, do not picture him alone. Picture the birds slipping between his bands. Picture the fish cleaning him as he floats to safety. Because behind that hard shell is a survivor who owes his life every single day to the smallest partners of the river. An armored little runner who escapes pumas and giant catfish, kept alive by birds and fish you could hold in one hand. That is the real secret of survival in the wild. If a story like this amazed you, subscribe to Nature's Cleaners, and we will keep uncovering the hidden partnerships that keep the wild alive. The river gives him danger, and the river gives him life. And through all of it, his tiny cleaners are always there. One more armored survivor in a world held together by the smallest of partners. Thank you for watching, and we will see you at the next Hidden Alliance.